Well, we do appreciate God's goodness and help this week, for all that He does for us, for the strength He daily gives us. Let's turn to Matthew chapter 5 this morning. Matthew chapter 5, we'll read verse 5. Verse 5 says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." We want to consider this morning that thought of meekness. And you know, it's an interesting thing, the combination we find here, and we'll find among other things that this is not the first place it is mentioned in the Scripture, that the meek shall inherit the earth. Now, I don't know about you, most people, as we think about that word meek, I think a lot of times people think weak. But if you think that way, we'd say first, consider the combination here. If you think of meek as weak, think of the words, "Blessed are the weak, for they shall inherit the earth." You don't picture the weak as being a conqueror, one that would overcome. But that's what he's describing in part when he says they shall inherit the earth. A people that are overcomers. So as we consider the thought of meekness this morning, we want us to realize it's not talking about weakness. It's talking about a condition of heart and mind. This word here that is translated meek, the Cruden's Concordance kind of approached it this way: gentle, kind, not easily provoked, ready to yield rather than cause trouble. But also this thought, but not used in the Bible in the bad sense of tamely submissive and servile. In other words, the bad sense being weak. He's not trying to picture weakness here, but a trait of character that produces works of gentleness and kindness. A trait of character that is not easily provoked, and one that does not want to cause trouble. Well, and that's maybe not how you'd picture a conqueror exactly, but certainly it's not a term of weakness. Now we have what they call a expository dictionary that tries to take the Greek and explain it to us in English. And you know, in that dictionary, what they had to say is this: the word that is translated meek in our Bible, there is no English word for that. And that's why they had trouble choosing a word, because there's nothing that really takes in the English. In the English, what the Greek word is trying to say. They said meekness suggests weakness, where the Greek does nothing of the kind. It describes a condition of mind and of heart. Meekness was manifested by the Lord and commended to the believer. It's a fruit of power. Think about Jesus. He was meek, and we'll get to that before we're done. But he wasn't powerless. He had all of the power of God at his disposal. But he didn't come to cause trouble. He didn't come to pursue selfish interests. But he was powerful, and yet that power manifested itself in a real gentleness. Men assume one is weak because he is powerless. But the Lord was meek because he had God's infinite resources at hand. So this is not talking about blessed are the powerless. But really what it's getting to, blessed are those that have the power of God at work in their heart, producing that character that's not out to cause trouble. It's not out looking for itself, but it's out to do good. Meekness is the opposite of self-assertive and self-interest because it's not focused on self at all. Now that begins to help us to see a little bit of what meekness is about. And it says that people of that character shall inherit the earth. Well, you know, that's actually the kind I'd like to be winners, isn't it? The ones you'd want? Yeah. I think about the events of our day, and you know, we can look over Northern Africa, the Middle East, and we've got all of these uprisings. And of those leaders that the people are rising up against, how many would you call meek? I wouldn't probably call any of them that. You know, they've got their Swiss bank accounts. They use the power of government to keep themselves well taken care of. That's not what meekness is about. Meekness is about having that character that is such that you might have great power at your disposal, but it's not used for selfish interest. It's used to the benefit of those around you. So the first thing we want to understand is that the meek shall inherit the earth. They have access to a power that many times people don't understand, and that power is the power of God that gives them that character that they possess. Now, if we turn to Numbers, the 12th chapter, in Numbers chapter 12, we'll begin at verse 1. In Numbers 12, verse 1, and Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married. For he had married an Ethiopian woman. And they said, hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Hath he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it. Now the man Moses was very meek, above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. And the Lord spake suddenly unto Moses, and unto Aaron, and unto Miriam, Come ye come out ye three unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And they three came out. And the Lord came down in the pillar of the cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches. And the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said unto Moses, Alas, my Lord, I beseech thee, lay not the sin upon us, wherein we have done foolishly, and wherein we have sinned. Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed, when he cometh out of his mother's womb. And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, Heal her now, O God, I beseech thee. And the Lord said unto Moses, If her father had but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out from the camp 7 days, and after that let her be received in again. And Miriam was shut out from the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not till Miriam was brought in again. Now here we find recorded Moses was the meekest man upon the face of the earth. And you know, as we consider the example of Moses, Moses grew up, he could have been Pharaoh's son. He could have had a great position there as far as his upbringing and his place in the palace. But we know that he chose instead to be with the people of Israel. And you know, after he had kind of took a stand that way, he found himself out in the desert watching his father-in-law's sheep. And he could have been content to be a shepherd. But God met him there, and at the burning bush, God spoke to him there. And God says, All right, I want you to go down and bring the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt. And Moses, among other things, said what? He says, Well, Lord, you know, I stammer. And God said, Well, I made mouths. I think I can handle that situation. And Moses, he wasn't, all right, let's go. I'm the best. God had to say, Look, I'll send Aaron along so he can do the talking. He'll take care of the stammer. And so God chose, I want you to see the picture here, and it helps us understand meekness a little bit. God chose the meekest man to do what? To lead his people out of Egypt, to establish the kingdom and nation of Israel. He didn't choose someone that was brash and all full of himself. He chose a meek man to lead. I recall one place it says 600,000 footmen. And you begin to read the life of Moses. Time and again, the people of Israel was a real challenge to him. More than one time he could have easily said, God, I've had it with these folks. Just destroy them. And God would have. But instead, you find him in the place like this. Here was Miriam and Aaron. Certainly they had spoken some things. But God made it very clear that their speaking against Moses was not an appropriate speech. And you know, God made it very clear. He says, look, among you, if there be a prophet, I, the Lord, will make myself known to him in a vision and speak to him in a dream. And so there were people hearing from God in dreams and visions. But he says, think about Moses. I speak to him face to face. I just tell it to him like it is. There's no dark sayings. What we want you to see is Moses had power with God. But then, because of the meekness, he did not exercise that power to promote Moses. Even in this case, here Miriam and Aaron had spoken against him. And as soon as God's judgment, I want you to understand, it wasn't Moses that called them together to judgment. It was God. God says, folks, down at the tabernacle, we need to have a visit. Get up and get there. We need to have a talk. And when he got done, Miriam had leprosy. God dealt with the problem. And we want you to see that one of the reasons that the meek shall inherit the earth is because the meek have access to the power of God, and God is their defense. You don't have to defend yourself when you've got God looking out for you. That's a wonderful thing to think about, and it should bring much comfort and assurance to our heart to know that God is looking out for us. But here, even as they had spoken against Moses, when Miriam turned up with the leprosy, and Aaron looked at Moses and says, Moses, do something. And Moses immediately cried to God and says, heal her now, O God, I beseech thee. He was ready in the face of these that had spoken against them. He was ready for what? Immediately to beseech God in their behalf. And certainly it was Moses' cry that God would heal her right now. But because that God felt she needed to, you might say, learn her lesson, God said, well, if her father had spit in her face, she'd spend 7 days out of the camp. So let her go spend 7 days. That wasn't Moses' request. It wasn't Moses' request. Moses' request was what? Heal her now. Now, God, don't let this be on her. Don't let this be her case. Heal her now. We want you to see Moses was meek above all men upon the face of the earth. He wasn't weak. He had great power. There's very few people who walked among men had such a relationship with God as Moses had. Up through that time, and you read through the Old Testament, Moses had a walk with God that was beyond what many people ever experienced. He had the power of God behind him. When God sent him to bring those people out, he didn't say, now Moses, you go down there and you come up with a scheme and a strategy and a plan for getting this all done. He said, Moses, you just go down there and you do what I tell you. And he says, to give you an idea, just throw that staff on the ground. And he throws it on the ground, it becomes a snake. And he's, whoa, get me away from that snake. And God said, just get it by the tail and it'll be a staff again. And God showed him, I'm going to do some things. And it was the power of God working in Moses, and not to lift Moses up, though certainly you might say Moses achieved a place of great honor. But we want you to see it was the power of God in Moses for the benefit of the children of Israel. And Moses lived his life that way. Time and again, he suffered at the hands of those very children of Israel. But time and again, he was back pleading for them to God, that God would stretch forth his hand in their behalf. We want you to see that meekness in Moses' case was not a case of weakness, but it was a case of the power of God at work in his heart, in his life, in his mind for God's people. Let's turn over to Numbers, the 16th chapter. We'll begin with verse 1. This is the story of Korah, and it's kind of a long reading, but it's something to think about. In Numbers 16, beginning at verse 1, now Korah, the son of Ishar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Peleth, sons of Reuben, took men, and they rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of the assembly, famous in the congregation, men of renown. And they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said unto them, Ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves above the congregation of the Lord. And when Moses heard it, he fell upon his face. And he spake unto Korah and unto all his company, saying, Even tomorrow the Lord will show who are his, and who is holy, and will cause him to come near unto him, even him who he hath chosen will he cause to come near unto him. This do, take you censers, Korah, and all his company, and put fire therein, and put incense in them before the Lord tomorrow. And it shall be that the man whom the Lord doth choose, he shall be holy. Ye take too much upon you, ye sons of Levi. And Moses said unto Korah, Hear I pray you, ye sons of Levi. Seemeth it but a small thing unto you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel, to bring you near to himself to do the service of the tabernacle of the Lord, and to stand before the congregation to minister unto them? And he hath brought thee near to him, and all thy brethren, the sons of Levi, with thee, and seek ye the priesthood also? For which cause both thou and all thy company are gathered together against the Lord? And what is Aaron, that you murmur against him? And Moses sent to call Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, which said, We will not come up. Is it a small thing that thou hast brought us up out of a land that floweth with milk and honey, to kill us in the wilderness, except thou make thyself altogether a prince over us? Moreover, thou hast not brought us into a land that flows with milk and honey, or given us inheritance of fields and vineyards. Wilt thou put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up. And Moses was very wroth, and said unto the Lord, Respect not thou their offering. I have not taken one ass from them, neither have I hurt one of them. And Moses said unto Korah, Be thou and all thy company before the Lord, thou and they and Aaron, tomorrow. And take every man his censer, and put incense in them, and bring ye before the Lord every man his censer, 250 censers, thou also and Aaron, each of you his censer. And they took every man his censer, and put fire in them, and laid incense thereon, and stood in the door of the tabernacle of the congregation with Moses and Aaron. And Korah gathered all the congregation against them unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the glory of the Lord appeared unto all the congregation. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, Separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. And they fell upon their faces and said, O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and wilt thou be wroth with all the congregation? And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the congregation, saying, Get you up from about the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And Moses rose up and went unto Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of the Israel followed him. And he spake unto the congregation, saying, Depart, I pray you, from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing of theirs, lest ye be consumed in all their sins. So they get up from the tabernacle of Korah, and Dathan and Abiram on every side. And Dathan and Abiram came out and stood in the door of their tents, and their wives and their sons and their little children. And Moses said, Hereby ye shall know that the Lord hath sent me to do all these works. For I have not done them of mine own mind. If these men die the common death of all men, or if they be visited after the visitation of all men, then the Lord hath not sent me. But if the Lord make a new thing, and the earth open up her mouth, and swallow them up, and all that appertain unto them, and they go down quick into the pit, then you shall understand that these men have provoked the Lord. And it came to pass, as he made an end of speaking all these words, that the ground clave asunder that was under them, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up, and their houses, and all the men that appertained unto Korah, and all their goods. Now we see the example of Korah here, and certainly they looked around and says, well, aren't we all holy? Aren't we all God's people? Doesn't my opinion just matter as much as yours? Why, Moses has turned this into a family thing. Aaron got the best position because he's Moses' brother. Well, we're just as good as you are. You ought to just back off a little. And Moses, it says, fell on his face. Why? He wasn't trying to promote Moses. And then you had Dathan and Abiram. They said, man, we're not even coming down there. He'll just try to put out our eyes. He's just trying to blind everybody. He's just trying to mislead everybody. He promised us a land flowing with milk and honey. He took us from a land where we had everything. And now look at us. Where's the milk and honey? We ain't even coming down there where He's at. And Moses said, man, I ain't taking one thing from you folks. I'm not taking advantage of you. So he says, well, we'll all take our censer and we'll put some fire and incense in it, and we'll let the Lord's response be the answer. Moses didn't have to defend himself. He didn't have to defend Aaron. And we know that when Moses, you might say, the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. Think of the power there. All right, you guys are going to get it. No. It says him and Aaron fell on their face before God and says, God, if one man sins, the whole congregation is going to have to pay. This is terrible. And they began to get a concept of what God was getting ready to do. And they weren't there to lift up themselves. We want you to see meekness is a quality of character, not of powerlessness, but of a character that genuinely cares about others. That's not thinking about itself. Here they were. They had insulted Moses. Here you promised us all this and you aren't delivering none of it. And you just brought us out here to make us your slaves. And they insulted Moses. But Moses cried for the congregation. God, don't let them all be consumed. And it was very obvious. It wasn't Moses. It was the power of God that they were dealing with. Moses says, if these folks die a normal death, obviously, I'm not who I say I am. But at the same time, what did he say? I didn't do these works of my own mind. If these die a common death, the Lord hath not sent me. But if the Lord make a new thing, then ye shall understand that these men have provoked the Lord. And we know those men, the ground swallowed them up. Now I want you to think about, there was a very real power at work here. This was not powerlessness. But the character of Moses to plead for these people. And if you'd read the rest of the chapter, it's sad. Could you believe the next day, or a very short period of time thereafter, you know what those people had to say? You killed those folks. They murmured and complained. They said, you killed those folks. And Moses says to Aaron, take your censer and run through the camp, that the plague might be stayed. He was once again crying out for those people in the face of something that real. If they saw something that people had never seen before, the ground just opened up and those people were all gone. And the people had seen the power of God. That wasn't Moses. You tell me what man can schedule an earthquake and open up the ground and swallow up just a certain group of folks. That wasn't the power of man. And yet, just like the next day, people are saying, you used the power for your selfish interest. You killed those people. And he had to send Aaron through the camp with a censer to draw a line between the plague and the people. Now that's meekness. And we want us to understand what meekness is. It's not powerlessness. It's a people that have the very power of God working on the inside. And that's why the scripture tells us the meek shall inherit the earth. Because it's not just a powerless people and they're just drifting along, and somehow they're going to wind up with an inheritance of the earth. There are people that have connected with the power of God. And they can rest their case in the hand of God and thereby be free to do those things that God would give them to do. The meek shall inherit the earth. We're thinking about it. Certainly when God is at work in your life, it will make a real difference in the effect of your life in the world about you. If we turn to Psalm 37, in Psalm 37, we'll begin at verse 1. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity. For they shall soon be cut down like the grass, and shall wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. So shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Commit thy way unto the Lord, trust in him, and he shall bring it to pass. And he shall bring forth thy righteousness as the light, and thy judgment as the noonday. Rest in the Lord, and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not thyself in any wise to do evil. For evildoers shall be cut off, but those that wait upon the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be. Yea, thou shalt diligently consider his place, and it shall not be. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. The wicked plotteth against the just, and gnasheth upon him with his teeth. The Lord shall laugh at him, for he seeth that his day is coming. And we could read the rest of the psalm. The rest of the psalm is all along this way. But what we want you to see is how, you might say, the way of the meek works. You could look around you in the world, and if you read on down the Psalms, it says, I saw the wicked spreading himself as the green bay tree. Boy, just, I'm just big and powerful. And we can look upon people that have done that, but we also know that many times those that have promoted themselves have been self-assertive, have looked out for the self-interest, have brought their devices to pass, have schemed to set themselves up. You might look on them and think, well, they're really getting away with some things. He says, don't envy that. There's a power you need to take note of. And that's the power of God. You need to understand that it might look like folks, by asserting themselves and by pushing ahead, and you know how it is. Maybe you go down to the office and you see the person that's climbing up the ladder and he's stepping on people all along the way. And the devil would say, that's what you need to do. No, you don't. You just need God as your helper. He can get you as high as you need to go. So he says, don't envy the wicked. They're going to be soon cut down like the grass. They're going to wither. Trust in the Lord and do good. So shalt thou dwell in the land. Verily thou shalt be filled. Delight thyself in the Lord. He'll give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in Him, and He'll bring it to pass. And that's what we need to see. The thing we really are counting on is the power of God. And I don't want to expend that power to assert myself and to further my own selfish interest. That God gives us His blessing and His benefit to accomplish His goals and His plan. Now, He has a plan. He has goals. But we want you to see your righteousness can go forth as the light. Your judgment is the noonday. Rest in the Lord and wait patient for Him. Don't fret yourself about those that seem like they're prospering and bringing wicked things to pass. Cease from anger, forsake wrath. Don't fret yourself in any wise to do evil, for God will take care of that. God will take care of that. You know, that's one of the sources, you might say, of the character of the meek, is their trust is in God. I can take this situation, I can put it in God's hands, and God can take care of it. I don't have to try to see to it that you get, you know, some people go, well, I don't get back, I get even. Well, I don't have to try to do that. I don't have to. Why? Because my trust is in God. God can take care of me. They might be scheming. They might be plotting. You know, sometimes people fear folks are conspiring against me. And I remember one time I had someone come to me to work and said, man, these people are doing this to me. What do I do? And I says, well, just try to learn from it and be better. He's like, but they're going to win. No. If you keep improving and you keep getting better, you'll be all right. He was like, I need to run to the manager. I need to do this. No, you just need to, if the criticism's valid, take it. And if it's not, just leave it lay. And God can take care of you. It was kind of hard counsel, I think, for him to hear. But you know, God could take care of you. Sure, people can talk against you behind your back. Moses had it. People can rise up and we're going to take you out. And Moses had it. But he could just go talk to God about it. And that's where his trust was at. And you know, think about it. I don't know if Moses even heard yet what Miriam and Aaron were up to. But God stepped in and took care of it. When we put our trust in God, God can bring us through life situations the same way. We do not have to get all wrapped up in ourself and our selfish interest. We can just trust in God. But evildoers are going to be cut off. Those that wait upon the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. The evildoer scheming, and he's going to have the big inheritance, and he's going to have all the things. But come to find out, those that are trusting in God, they're the ones that's going to inherit it. I believe Solomon said over And Ecclesiastes are one of those places, I don't remember exactly where. He basically said this, the rich, they heap up all that stuff so it can become somebody else's. In other words, when they die, they're gone. And they might think they've got it all fixed where it's controlled by their family or something, but it can become somebody else's. God is still able to rule in the affairs of men. And they that wait on the Lord shall inherit the earth. So think about it. The meek are they that wait upon the Lord. They found the real power. They found the real strength. And in it they found something that has done a work in their character, in their heart, in their mind, to help them to realize, I don't have to waste my life upset and angry, fighting for and defending myself. I can just put my life in the hands of God. And by His power, and by His grace, and by His strength, I can inherit the earth. I can be the recipient of good things. It says the meek shall inherit the earth and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. That person that's running around pursuing their interest. That person that's running around always defending themselves against those seeming attacks that are coming. They're not enjoying the abundance of peace. But when you let the power of God work in your heart and life, you can delight yourself in the abundance of peace. The wicked plots against the just, they gnash upon him with his teeth. They try to do things. And he says here, and I consider it with thought that the Lord is merciful, but see it this way, the Lord laughs at the puny power of the weak that thinks they can bring something to pass. I tell you what, I believe a year ago, if you'd asked a lot of these guys in the Middle East, were they powerful and could they do anything they wanted to? They'd have told you yes. How's it looking today? They pursued their own interest. They should have been pursuing the interest of their people. But we want you to see, men rise, wicked men rise oftentimes, and people look at them and think that's really going to turn out, they're getting the control, they're getting this. But it says here, the Lord looks on and He laughs at them. Why? Because He knows their day's coming. Mm-hmm. Their day's coming. Mm-hmm. They're going to find out about real power. Mm-hmm. God still rules in the affairs of men. May our hearts be assured in that. God still rules in the affairs of men. I don't have to focus only on my own selfish interest. I can put my case in the hand of God. This psalm is a good psalm to read and to understand. And it helps us to see that the source of meekness is the power of God at work in our heart, in our life. Being able to put our trust right there. Moses, it says, was the meekest man, but I want you to see that he was totally trusting on God. What do you see when you start observing Moses? Every time those people rose up, every time that stuff got thrown in his face, and, 40 years of it, I think probably by the time he looked over from the mountain across in the land of Canaan, in one way you might say, could almost been glad to say, God, I'm just glad to come to you. Because at one place, you know what he said? God, what did I do to deserve these people? He said that. What did I do to deserve these people? Why don't you just kill me? Take me out of this. What did I do to deserve them? Why? Because they were continually, Moses, why did you do this to us? Moses, why did you do that to us? Moses, and he was continually having to pray for them. But his trust, it's interesting that every time they came, his trust was in God. And he would fall on his face before God and say, oh God, what about this? What do we do this time? When they wanted flesh, he says, how in the world, 600,000 footmen plus the families, how in the world, where are we going to find enough animals to feed all these people the flesh that they're demanding? God said, not a problem. It won't be for a day. It'll be for a month. And they'll eat so much of it, it'll be running out their nose. And they'll be tired of it. And God did it. We want you to see that meekness comes from putting our trust in the power of God. If we turn to Matthew, the 11th chapter. Matthew chapter 11. Beginning at verse 28, this is the words that Jesus had to say. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. For I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. You know, we think about it. Moses was, I'd like to say it this way, he was the meekest man in the Old Testament dispensation. Just as Solomon, you might say, was the wisest man in the Old Testament dispensation. And Samson was the strongest. And you can go through those superlatives, but they're mostly for the Old Testament dispensation. Because when we get to the New Testament, there's Jesus. And he's beyond them all. And what does he say? Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden. You know, are you struggling with a rat race? Oh, I go to the office and I try to outrun everybody else and I'm trying to get ahead and I can't run fast enough to get ahead. Are you laboring and heavy laden? He says, I'll give you rest. Think about the psalm. Don't fret yourself because of the wicked. Don't fret yourself because of those that seem like they're bringing evil devices to pass. He says, I'll give you rest. Put your trust in the power of God. He was not advocating we come to a place of powerlessness, but he said, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. For I am meek and lowly in heart. But he was filled with the very power of God. He wasn't describing a condition of weakness at all. He was powerful. And yet consider the life of Jesus. He went about doing good. He went about using his power such that they that were oppressed of the devil could go free. He is the ultimate in meekness. And he says, come, learn of me. Learn of me. I'm meek and lowly in heart. I'm submitted to the power of God and full of the power of God. But selfish interest was not part of the program. As I said, it's not self-assertive. It's not self-interested, because in reality, self wasn't what it was about at all. And in reality, we need that quality of soul. We need that quality of spirit. We can find rest to our souls. It spoke of the peace and assurance that we can have there in the Psalms. When we put our life in the hands of God, when we trust ourselves to His power, when we realize that I don't have to go out and pursue all of these things for myself, because I've got God to take care of me. He can provide for me. He can make opportunities for me. He can defend me. All of these things are in the power of God. Meekness is found in the power of God. When we can be able to submit ourselves completely to God, walk with Him, trust in Him, count on Him, let Him work out the details of our life, truly, we can manifest the fruits of meekness in our life. And it'll be fruits. It'll be what? Gentleness, kindness. Those are fruits that stem from meekness of character, from that willingness to submit ourselves to God, to His power, to let Him work in us. He says the meek shall inherit the earth. You really want to get ahead. You really want to be a conqueror. Put your case in the hands of God. Let the power of God work in your life. Quit fighting the system. You know, men go, I'm going to fight the system. I'm going to... Let God be your defense. Let Him pave the way. Let His power work in you. And you can inherit the earth.